So as technology and video games and video game development has been and still is becoming more and more advanced over the years, I feel like a lot of people have this mentality of, oh, this game is too old, it sucks, the graphics are shit, I ain't playing that. And I mean, that's fine, it's your decision, I can't really decide for you, right? But I can tell you why that viewpoint does not make much sense, at least in my eyes. See, not every single game needs to be ultra realistic and modern and up to date to be a good experience. If we're talking single player games, there are so many examples of games that can be really fucking enjoyable without the amazing hyper realistic visuals. Don't get me wrong, good graphics give you more of a feeling that you are in that game, and that's something I personally see as a added bonus, but not a necessity. But enough with me talking shit. Let's get into some actual concrete examples, starting with a little game called Gran Turismo 2. Now, if you're someone who grew up with the PS1 like myself, you will remember this absolute masterpiece. This game is, for me to this day, my favorite driving/racing game. It's a game made at a perfect time, at least in my eyes. Not only was it, in my opinion, the best era for cars in general, but it came out just before the rise of the JDM tuning community in the early 2000s. Not to mention, it's what got me into cars as a child from a very young age, of course. The various performance options had their own sort of descriptions from where I actually could learn the basics of what certain car parts do. So not only was it fun because simply the driving, and not only was it cool because it had all these cool old school 90s 2000s cars, but it was also the customization. Most importantly for me, it taught me a few things about cars and started my interest in 90s and 2000s cars, which I got sort of back into over the last couple of years or so. And I started learning more and more about cars in general, and all of this I can happily attribute to Gran Turismo 2. All this to say, I still play this game here and there, and it's so much more fun, especially now that I have a better understanding of certain things. And I really can't talk about this game and not mention the amazing soundtrack that fits into the game so well. And guess what? This is a PS1 game from 1999, made to run on 480p, so do with that information what you will. Moving on to another similar example, it is the original Rayman, also for the PS1. This is hands down one of the most difficult games I have ever played in my life to this day, and I kind of make it a yearly tradition for myself to play a bit of it every year. Right around this time of the year when the holidays are up, it's just such a vibe to play, even though it can be really challenging at times. But this game is at its core a basic platforming game, but for me, it's one of the best games Ubisoft ever made. The music, the level design, how every level has its own sort of aesthetic, they're all really strong points of this game. But for this one, why I like it, it's really because it's challenging. It's not like a lot of modern day single player games that usually aren't that difficult. But the most important thing, that this game is actually fun, and it's far from realistic looking, but it's inherently fun, and that's what, at least to me, matters most in a goddamn video game. But what about a more modern and, let's say, well-known game? What about the best-selling game of all time, Minecraft? Minecraft is, if you didn't know, the best-selling video game of all time, and just like Rayman, it's a game with a very simple concept, and even though it's a game from the beginning of the 2010s, it looks like something pulled from a PlayStation 1, and I can pretty much guarantee that the vast majority of us have at least some great memories playing this game with our friends, or even on our own. Minecraft for me is a chill game that you load up with your friends when you just want to relax, have some pure fun. It's not much more than that, and like I said, it looks like a legit PS1 game. My point is that these games like these, don't need the fancy graphics. Now, yes, you can upscale them, and I do that sometimes, but does that make the game any more fun in reality? For me, not really. Yes, it looks more aesthetically pleasing, but does that really matter that much? Especially in a game that can be enjoyed with friends, like Minecraft? Well, I don't know, not to me particularly. And also, before we continue with this video, if you're enjoying it so far, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel, as it helps me out a ton. We are trying to get to 1,500 subscribers by the end of this year. My main point is that the games I just mentioned are made with this one simple goal, and that is to be fun and to provide us as the player with a reality that is different from our everyday lives, to provide us with a place where we can forget about all of our troubles for a little bit of time and enjoy some of our own downtime, whether it be with friends or on our own, like I said. Now, I want to look at some story-oriented games a little bit. In my opinion, one of the best narratives in gaming is the classic GTA 4. And if we're looking at it with today's standards, the visuals of the game look dated, of course. I mean, it's a 16-year-old PS3 game after all. But this game, just like the others I mentioned, does not need that. It's a narrative. It's where it really shines. The narrative is really the best part of GTA 4 in my opinion. And while I might prefer GTA 5 story personally, there is absolutely no denying that this game has one of the best stories ever made in history of gaming. All of the characters feel very real with their own personalities, behaviors, viewpoints, and so on. Sometimes if I just decide to watch a cutscene in this game, I tend to forget that I'm even playing a game. To me, sometimes it really does feel like an actual movie because it's such a good and immersive story with excellent writing, and all this is accomplished without the crazy visuals. And hell, this game, even to this day, gets a lot of praise in the community as one of the best narratives Rockstar has ever made. I guess that's also something to consider after all these years since it's been released, and in my opinion, the exact same could be said for GTA San Andreas, which is now, believe it or not, a 20-year-old game, and people still play it to this day, and it has, in my opinion, just as good of a narrative as GTA 4. It's considered one of the best games ever made by Rockstar, and this is also a game made for the PS2, so guess what? It's not gonna have the most realistic graphics ever, but just like GTA 4, it is praised for its narrative, and everything that I just said about GTA 4 goes exactly the same for GTA San Andreas. Also, every GTA game, even though it's not stated outright, has its own message that we as the player can figure out by the end of the game. All this to say that to each and every video game we experience, whether it's a multiplayer or a single player experience, there is so much more to it than hyper realistic visuals. And as the last example of this video, I have to mention the very series because of which I created this right here YouTube channel, and that is of course, drumroll please, Kingdom Hearts. This is a franchise started back on the PS2 and the classic Cage games, even after the remasters are nothing spectacular visually, and they, just like the other ones I mentioned before them, don't need to be. The gameplay is, in most of them, really fun. Now, all these games, while also telling an amazing story, altogether have, just like the GTA games I mentioned, their own messages, and almost all of them are messages about friendship, redemption, second chances. No, not the ability, dumbass. The second chances in life, you know? In my childhood and through my early teenage years, these games taught me the significance of having good friends and what it means to always be by their side, and also to never give up on your friends and family no matter what happens, which is an important value in this life not everyone possesses and realizes, all while being genuinely fun to play and telling some convoluted, some tragic, and some overall genuinely good stories, accompanied by great music. What more can you ask for? While most of them, aside from Cage 3, maintain a very 2000s PS2-like visual style. One thing that both Cage and GTA have in common, in my opinion, is that these games have a wide range of characters, making it easy for us as the player to relate to certain characters, to our own lives and experiences, further immersing ourselves into these stories that the games want to tell. And to summarize, I think that people in this day and age have gotten way too focused on games being hyper-realistic, and if that is your preference, that's okay. I'm just trying to say that there is more to games than just the visual aspects, whether it's a game that is genuinely fun or challenging, or one that has a great message and a narrative. All of these have one thing in common. They shape us as people and can occasionally help us understand some values of life with no need for hyper-realistic visuals, which are here as a pure bonus. With that said, please leave your thoughts on this topic in the comments down below. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel as it would help me out a ton. Until the next video stream, thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.